Good morning, boys and girls. Hope you've had a good day so far. My day's been good. We are starting at a picture that we have already read about, and this is all of Rattenborough's friends. But I love this picture because it shows this thermometer, which lets you know that these animals on this side are cold-blooded animals. Their body temperature goes up and down depending on whether they are what their environment is. And these are warm-blooded animals. Their body temperature stays the same. You are a warm-blooded animal. If your body temperature changes, it's because you're sick, and we say that you have a fever. But let's go back, talk a little bit more about what classification means. Classification is the grouping together of things based on how they are alike, and the separating of things based on how they are different. In the last read aloud, which was last time, we talked about cold-blooded and warm-blooded animals, and which of Rattenborough's friends are cold-blooded? Well, Tabitha Toad is cold-blooded, Paolo the piranha, and Anna the anaconda. Which ones of his friends are warm-blooded? Hilda hippo and Ebenezer the egret. These vertebrate groups are cold-blooded. Do you remember which ones? These are cold-blooded. The fish, the amphibians, and the reptiles. And these groups are warm-blooded. We have the birds and the mammals. So I want to ask you 4 questions, and I want you to think if you can think of the characteristics of animals that are cold-blooded and think of the characteristics of animals that are warm-blooded and see if you can tell whether the animal I'm talking about is warm-blooded or cold-blooded. Here we go. On a warm summer day, painted turtles will gather on a log sticking out of the river so they can bask in the sun. The sun's warmth will increase the turtle's internal body temperature. Is the turtle an example of a warm-blooded or cold-blooded animal? Yeah, a turtle is an example of a cold-blooded animal. It's basking in the sun and the internal body temperature changes. Number 2, a walrus's body is large and solid. It has a thick layer of blubber that helps it keep its body temperature constant. There were some key words in there. Did you hear them? Keep its body temperature constant. If an animal keeps its body temperature constant, it is warm-blooded. That's right. Number 3, because an elephant lives in a hot climate, sometimes its body gets too warm. It keeps its body temperature constant. Extra heat is released from its large, thin ears. Plus, it can use its ears as fans. Okay. In order to keep its body temperature constant, that's the key. An elephant is an example of a warm-blooded animal. Number 4. In the winter, a bullfrog hibernates to save energy while it sits on the bottom of a cold pond. In spring, when the water warms, the frog's body temperature will warm too, allowing it to become active again. In very dry times, the bullfrog will estivate in the mud to keep from drying out. So is a bullfrog a warm-blooded or a cold-blooded animal? Well, anytime an animal can estivate, that is a sure hint that this is a cold-blooded animal. The only animals that can estivate are cold-blooded. Well, we're going to be learning about different animals this time. I'm going to run through this up until we get to the very end. That's the end, and this is the new chapter we're going to be reading. Look at those dots. Listen to find out why the backbone is so important to vertebrate animals. Hello, everybody. Rattenborough world traveler and presenter of animals back for another exciting day of slideshow and tell. Last time we classified or grouped animals as cold-blooded and warm-blooded. Yes, I am warm-blooded just like you. And how about my friend Hilda Hippo? Yes, Hilda Hippo is also warm-blooded. We all have another characteristic in common too, and that's what we're going to talk about today. We are all vertebrates. That's right, vertebrates have backbones, and animals without backbones are called invertebrates. Because you and I are both vertebrates, we'll talk about vertebrates first. Let's take a look at the hippopotamus. When you look at the outside of an animal, you can't see the backbone because it's on the inside. But sometimes you can tell where the backbone is. Under a vertebrate's skin, there is a ridge. This is the backbone or spine that starts near the head and runs all the way down its back to its tail. Before we go any further, see if you can find your own spine or backbone, just like you did the other day. Reach around and rub the middle of your back. Remember those bumpy bones? Each bump you feel is a separate vertebra. They form a row from your neck all the way down your back to your tailbone. Your spine serves a very important purpose. Okay, boys and girls, anytime you're reading something and the author says something like, "Ooh, there's a very important purpose," listen really carefully to what comes next because they're about to tell you something really important. So let me read that sentence again. Your spine serves a very important purpose. Ding, 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 ding. Your spine protects your spinal cord, that large bundle of nerves that send messages from your brain to every part of your body. So, did you get it? What was the very important purpose of the spine? To protect your spinal cord, which is a large bundle of nerves that send messages from your brain to every part of your body. For today, let's take a glimpse at the backbones of the 5 animal species to which my 5 friends belong. We've seen that a hippopotamus has a backbone. Now let's take a look at one of Ebenezer's fellow egrets. Its backbone, or spinal column, helps it to hold its head way up high and protects its spinal cord. Like all egrets, Ebenezer could not live without his backbone. All birds have backbones or vertebra. Snakes don't look like they have backbones, do they? Even though snakes slither or slip and slide along, they absolutely do have backbones. A snake's vertebra, like anacondas, run the length of its body and swing low to the ground as its muscles help it move along the ground or climb up trees. A pair of ribs is attached to each vertebra, protecting the body parts inside the snake's body. All reptiles have backbones, so you can't always tell from the outside whether an animal is a vertebrate with a spine or backbone or whether it's an invertebrate. How about fish? Would you say fish have a backbone? The answer is yes. All fish have backbones too, just as reptiles, birds, and mammals do. It's very tricky to see, but if you took an X-ray of its body, you would see that all the other tiny bones that make up the skeleton of the fish are connected to its spine. Paolo told me that even though all fish have backbones, some fish, like sharks and stingrays, have backbones that are made of lighter and more bendable cartilage instead of hard bone, allowing them to be more flexible and travel more quickly. That leaves amphibians. Take a look at my animal friends one more time. Pay close attention to the toad next to Tabitha. It's hard to tell when you look at a toad's body that there is a backbone inside. Now tell me, do toads have backbones? Yes, to be sure they certainly do. Toads are vertebrates too. All amphibians have backbones. That means that all 5 of the animals you've seen today are vertebrates. They all have backbones. The question I'm going to present to you, students, is this. Do all animals on Earth have backbones? What are your predictions? We know that mammals, which include hippopotami, me and you, birds, fish, reptiles, and amphibians are all vertebrates too. Haven't we covered all the animal groups on Earth? Haha, that's a trick question. If you answered no, your predictions were correct. Do you remember that there are more vertebrates or more invertebrates on Earth? Look at the image that I shared with you earlier. Remember, more than 95% of all animal species are invertebrates. Let me see if I can get back to that picture. Was it even in here? I think it was at the very beginning. Oh, there we go. A few fish with a backbone, a few reptiles with a backbone, a few birds with a backbone, a few amphibians with a backbone, a few mammals with a backbone. Most animals are invertebrates. 95 out of every 100 animals are invertebrates, which means they do not have backbones. Let's work our way back up this way. Look at that. As you can see, vertebrates are actually only a teeny tiny group here on Earth. Because we tend to think and talk mostly about vertebrates, we sometimes forget that most of the animals in the world are actually invertebrates, and most of those are, ta-da, look at your picture, insects. Think how many insects there must be on our planet. No wonder insects are the most plentiful group of organisms that have ever lived. They make up 3/4 of all the species in the animal kingdom. Wow. There are flies, wasps, beetles, cockroaches, ladybugs, and butterflies that are all insects. There are surely a lot more species of insects than there are species of amphibians, mammals, birds, fish, and reptiles, all put together. Even though insects are by far the largest group of invertebrates, they're not the only invertebrates. Here's another question for you to think about. Close your eyes and pretend that you're a taxonomist for a moment. Can you think of any other animals without backbones? Here's a hint. Instead of internal vertebra, these animals have an external or outer hard body covering. The largest group of invertebrates is made up of arthropods. Insects make up the largest group of arthropods, but they're not the only group of arthropods. Another large group of arthropods include arachnids. Spiders are arachnids, and so are ticks, daddy longlegs, and scorpions. Insects have 6 legs and 3 body parts. The ant in this image has a very long antenna. They almost look like legs. In comparison, arachnids have 8 legs and 2 body parts. Instead of having flexible internal skeletons, all of the arthropods wear a tough exoskeleton or protective covering on the outside. I bet you can recognize some of these common examples of insects and arachnids. But a crustacean, say crustacean, is another kind of invertebrate and also a type of arthropod. Crustaceans. Ew. Crustaceans have exoskeletons and usually live in water. Copepods are the smallest of the crustaceans. They're barely visible, but they're a very important source of food for fish in the ocean. Can anyone think of other animals that are classified as crustaceans? Yeah, good ideas. Some of the most common crustaceans include shrimp, lobsters, fiddler crabs, and blue crabs. These animals all have a hard exoskeleton which protects the body and keeps it from drying out. Have you ever seen a crab? If you eat a blue crab, like this one, or a lobster, you have to remove the hard exoskeleton to find the tasty meat inside. Snails, jellyfish, and earthworms are also invertebrates. Other spineless creatures include coral, sea anemones, and sea stars. Many invertebrates are small and hidden and may not even seem like animals, but they are by far the largest group of animals populating the earth. What a lot of ways there are to classify animals. In order to study living things, taxonomists classify each organism according to its kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, and species. The purpose of this classification system is to understand each organism better by the characteristics that make it unique. Vertebrates and invertebrates are two types of animals in the world of taxonomy. It is just one way of classifying animals, but I think it's a very helpful way, don't you? You and I may not look at all alike or much like Ebenezer, Tabitha, or Anna, but we have a very distinct similarity to one another. We all have backbones. So take a look at this chart that shows how a group of familiar organisms are related to each other. On the top row, you can see a group of living organisms. This is the top row. A house cat, a mountain lion, a tiger, a seal, a turtle, a grasshopper, and a tree. All of those things are living. In the next row, titled Kingdom, notice that one of the living organisms is no longer included. The tree. The tree actually belongs to a different kingdom. This row now shows only organisms that are part of the animal kingdom. In the next row, titled Phylum, the grasshopper is no longer included. All of the rest of the animals represented here are vertebrates, part of the Chordata phylum. In looking at the class row, you may notice that the turtle is no longer included. The turtle is in the reptile class, and all the other animals shown are mammals. In the row labeled Order, the mouse is not included because it's not a carnivore like the other animals shown. What is true about all the animals in the next row? Family. What's true about all those animals? That's right, they're all different types of cats. In the genus row, you now see that the house cat and the mountain lion are more closely related than the tiger. And the very last row represents one specific animal, a species of house cat. This process of starting out with many animals and ending up with just one is called the process of elimination. And as we went down the list, we eliminated or removed any animals that no longer had anything in common. The next time we get together, I will be showing you slides of fish, from tiny goldfish to gigantic sharks, and teaching about how scientists classify them according to their many different characteristics. You already know that fish are cold-blooded vertebrates. Be thinking about some of the other characteristics that scientists might use to classify fish. See you next time. All right, so let's do some questions. What is a vertebrate? I promise that question will be on the test. What is a vertebrate? A vertebrate is an animal with a backbone. Okay? An animal with a backbone is a vertebrate. A vertebrate is an animal with a backbone. What groups of animals are considered vertebrates? Reptiles are vertebrates. Amphibians are vertebrates. Fish are vertebrates. Mammals are vertebrates. And birds. What's another name for the backbone in vertebrates? A spinal column. So backbone, spinal column, vertebrates really are a lot of interchangeable ideas. Why is the backbone or spine of a vertebrate so important? Because the vertebrate, the backbone and spine of a vertebrate, protects the bundle of nerves, the spinal cord, which carries messages to the brain. In the way in which each individual vertebra of a snake fit with the next one allows this animal to move with a special kind of movement. It allows the snake to slither. Think of Slytherin. A very large group of animals is not a vertebrate group. Which very large animal group is not a vertebrate group? That's right, the ones you studied last year, the insects. Instead of being called vertebrates, they are called invertebrates. They don't have a backbone. In the Read Aloud today, you heard about one group of invertebrates called crustaceans, which includes lobsters and crabs. Why is the exoskeleton important to a crustacean? Well, it's a tough outer covering that protects its internal body parts. You heard today that some skeletons of vertebrates are made of bone, and some skeletons are made of softer tissue called cartilage. What are some examples of vertebrates with a skeleton made of bones? Humans, frogs, some fish, birds. And what is an example of a vertebrate with a lighter skeleton made of cartilage? Sharks, stingrays. How is that skeleton that's made of cartilage helpful for a shark or a stingray? Well, cartilage is more flexible and it's lighter than bone, which allows a shark or a ray to swim faster and be more flexible. So, very important things. Know what a vertebrate is. A vertebrate is an animal with a backbone. Know what an invertebrate is. An animal without a backbone. Super important. Talk to you tomorrow.